Hi, everyone. David Aragona and Mike Beer here, taking a look at an early Kentucky Oaks prep on Saturday at Fairgrounds. Race 9 is the Silverbulletday Stakes, going a mile and 70 yards on the dirt for the 3-year-old fillies. And Mike, this field of 8 signed on here, and they all have something to prove. Horses stepping up in class, some stretching out in distance for the first time, but there's a lot of potential among these 8 runners.
I feel like there really is, yeah. Well, you're right. They all have an awful lot in front of them here, but there's some talent in this race for sure. 8 fillies entered, David. Only 4 trainers represented, and a couple. It's worth pointing out a couple of these horses are cross-entered into a much easier spot on Sunday in allowance race. So we'll see if this field stays intact.
Yeah, it felt like some were expecting this race to come up a little bit tougher than it did. We'll see if any of them reroute to actually participate in this spot. And as you mentioned, Ken McPeak has a few runners in here, 3 of them to be specific, and he could be in control of this pace scenario. And we take a look at the Timeform US pace projector, because one feature of this race is there really isn't that much speed signed on. Few of these horses have shown any front-running ability. So maybe that puts the number 7, She's a Swede, on the front end just by default. She did win in gate-to-wire fashion last time, but she doesn't exactly strike you when you watch her run as some need the lead type.
Yeah, it really doesn't. I mean, I suppose that maybe they'll just go anyway because it feels like her only chance in here is if she somehow sort of shakes loose on the lead. I think the pace scenario, at least in my opinion, David, it was a little tough to decipher, mostly because you have 3 horses in here who are off of a debut win. And they all looked pretty good to me winning their debuts. And I think any one of those 3 fillies could be way more forward this time.
Yeah, would not be a surprise to see, especially the number 3, Simply Joking, show more speed on the stretch out, but she will have to break a little better than she did on debut. Let's go through this field in post position order, beginning with the number 1, Chasin. This is a Brad Cox trainee who did win on debut, one of those 3 coming out of a debut victory. Her victory came at Churchill Downs, going the 7 furlong distance, and I thought she ran really well for a horse that kind of missed the start that day. She traveled keenly into the race, just looked loaded every step of the way, stalled for a little bit around the 8th pole when it looked like she was going to blow by those horses, but she ultimately finished off the race well. And Mike, this one certainly has a pedigree to stretch out.
Yeah, just a huge pedigree. Maybe the biggest upset in the debut, David, is that this horse went off at 3-1, considering how well bred she is. And listen, it didn't come back with much of a figure, but I agree with you. I feel like she did some really good things in that race. And when I watched it back, to me, the main takeaway was there's way more to come with this filly. She got the job done there, but things didn't go exactly perfectly for her. She looked like she really needed the experience. She's obviously bred to go on, and she's got a great post here. I'm expecting more speed in this race, David, and I think she's going to really move forward.
Yeah, I just wonder what price she's going to be. I think the half-sister to Idiomatic, a lot of people expect her to take that step forward in her second start, and she certainly has a right to do so. The number 2 is Golden Gamble, one of those 3 Ken McPeak trainees in this race, and she's coming out of a second-place finish in the local prep for the Silver Bullet Day, the Untappable last time. Got a pretty good trip that day, was off the pace. The race was won on the front end by Her Laugh, who is not back in here, and I thought of the horses trying to make runs from off the pace, Golden Gamble certainly made the best late push. Watching her last couple of races, Mike, it does kind of feel like she has a tendency to lug in a little bit. We saw it from her when she broke her maiden, drew off impressively, but was kind of trying to run over the rail that day. And then last time out in the Untappable again, Brian Hernandez Jr. having some trouble keeping her straight in the stretch. Breaking from the inside this time, maybe she just gets a trip where Brian Hernandez can ride the rail like he likes to do.
Yeah, maybe gets a trip a little bit more like the one she got 2 starts back when she broke her maiden. I thought pretty impressively. But you're right. It seems like she's got some growing up to do. I'm pretty lenient on the loss as the favorite in the Untappable last time because, as you pointed out, that pace, it was 1 wire to wire. That pace was not fast. And this horse, I mean, Brian Hernandez, I'm not going to blame him, but he just sort of said he didn't even go for a run around the final turn in there. He waited until they got into the stretch, and by then it was way too late.
The number 3 is Simply Joking. She actually broke her maiden on debut in a stakes race at Fairgrounds. They took a shot that day. She actually took a lot of money to go off at 5-2 in that race and won very nicely. Like I said, she didn't break that sharply, was actually off last in the pack, but quickly moved up between horses, got shuffled a little bit into the far turn, but once she got to the outside, she was able to run down the leaders and win that race, facing some winners on debut. But Mike, when I look through that field, I was expecting it to come up as a stronger race than it appeared. I'm not sure that it actually turned out to be much stronger than your typical Fairgrounds maiden race. So I don't know how much extra credit she really deserved for winning a stakes first time out. she is stretching out in distance here, but she does have some pedigree to do it.
Yeah, I agree with you that I wouldn't, go crazy that she won a stakes race first time out considering the field, but I still will give her credit for winning that race and doing it with a solid figure and doing it with let's just say a less than perfect trip. It's not like she got a perfect trip in there. And then she really did have to battle through the stretch there. And she was pretty game, I thought, to get the job done. So I'll give her the respect that she deserves. I saw plenty of pedigree to suggest that she'll get at least this far. She seems like a pretty dangerous horse in here. I just wouldn't take a short price on her.
The number 4 is Drexel Hill. She's actually the stablemate of the filly we just talked about. She is one that is cross-entered in that allowance race on Sunday, so we'll see where she ends up starting. She's another one that's coming out of the Untappable Stakes, finished off the board that day, but the trip didn't really work out for her. She saved more ground than Golden Gamble did, but Drexel Hill just never really had a chance to run in the stretch. She was stuck behind a wall of horses when they got into the lane, had to alter course, and found some room, but it was way too late, and she was running on after the race was over. Now they put the blinkers on. Maybe that gets a little more tactical speed out of her. I did like the visual of her maiden victory at Woodbine on the all-weather surface, so we'll see if she can move forward on the dirt here.
Yeah, I liked all of her races up at Woodbine, even though it took her a few starts to finally break through. I thought she ran well in most of those races. I guess she had enough trouble last time that I'm obviously going to give her the benefit of the doubt and see if she can do better here. I'm a little concerned that maybe distance isn't exactly what she wants. That was the one takeaway I had from the loss 3 starts back when they stretched her out at Woodbine. I mean, she ran fine in there, but it did feel like she, had a chance to win. She loomed in the stretch and then couldn't get by. I wonder how far she wants to go, David.
The number 5 is California Sunset. She is the other Brad Cox trainee in this race, another one coming out of the Untappable. She settled for third that day, and like the 2 horses that we just talked about that were also coming out of that race, she's another one that was compromised by the lack of pace. Like we said, wired on the front end by her laugh, and California Sunset was just kind of staying on at one pace, and that seems to be her MO. She doesn't have a whole lot of speed. She's a grinder. She comes on at the end. She's going to finish. I just don't know if she's going to be able to overcome a lack of pace in this spot, Mike, because she seems like one of the biggest plotters of all the fillies in here.
Yeah, I didn't like that about her either. And I will say too, David, I mean, I don't know about you. I was a little surprised that she was so far back out running the Untappable last time. I mean, that pace wasn't fast, and it was like she couldn't keep up early. It's not, she won her maiden 2 starts back in the 2-turn debut, and it's not like she was a million out of it that day. I mean, she kept up close on the outside. I don't know why she was so far away last time, but she was running at the end of that race.
The number 6, Gowell's Delight, another from the Ken McPeak stable. She won on debut and actually did so paying $30 to win. The word was not out on this one, but for a horse that didn't get bet, she was pretty professional that day. She broke just fine, showed tactical speed, got a good trip, stalking the pace, and while the trip really did work out for her, I liked the way she finished off that race through the lane, got the 2 turns with no problem. You look through some of the also-rans in that field, and the speed figure that she got of 75 Beyer looks totally legitimate, so she's stepping up in company here, but I don't know how much she really has to improve, Mike, and at least she's got tactical speed.
I agree with every word that you just said. I mean, I don't know why they sort of laid off her in the debut. I mean, she was the only first-time starter in that field, so maybe that has something to do with it, but I'll give her extra credit for having no experience, going 2 turns, and then winning as impressively as she did. I mean, that was a really, really nice debut, and I'm not surprised at all that McPeak steps her right into Stakes Company.
And speaking of Ken McPeak, I found this DRF formulator fact that applies to Gowell's Delight with horses that won their debuts first time out, coming back for their second starts on the dirt. McPeak does pretty well moving these horses up in class. 7 for 25, 28% with a healthy $3 ROI. And completing that McPeak trio in the Silver Bullet Day is the number 7. She's a Swede. She won an off the turf race last time when she broke her maiden, got right to the front end, was able to back down the pace a little bit, and had enough to hold off a challenge through the lane. Not really sure what she was beating that day, Mike, and feels like this is a big step up in class for this filly.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, again, maybe they just try to use her speed here. And if she's not good enough to win it, it seems like she's probably not, then maybe she sets it up for one of her stablemates in here. She got the job done last time. I was far from impressed.
And then completing the field on the outside is the number 8, Bless the Broken. She ran pretty well, too, back when she just missed going a mile and a 16th at Churchill Downs. That was against Allowance Company. Stepped up in the Demoiselle last time, and she did run into a very good filly in the undefeated Brad Cox trainee, Mohima, but she was really no match for that one. I didn't see her do a ton of running in that race, Mike, so she's going to have to improve.
Yeah, great. I mean, she was never going to win the Demoiselle anyway, but she got an overall good trip, I thought, and she just didn't really show up with anything.
Let's throw up our picks for this Silver Bullet Day, Mike. And I think we're each going for recent debut winners that look like they've got upside coming in here, certainly in the case of Chasen, who you took on top.
Yeah, I just want to give her a chance. And you were right to point out that maybe you want to wait and see what kind of price she is, because it does feel like there's a chance that she gets bet this time. I liked what I saw from her debut, though, and I think she's going to handle the step up in class here. We'll just see, if that 4-1 money line is realistic. We both have Golden Gamble second, but I like the McPeak horse that you went with, David. Her debut was very impressive.
Yeah, and we'll see what price she is. She's 8-1 on the line. Kind of hard to believe that their bettors are going to stay away from her once again after she was so impressive on debut, but there are 3 McPeaks to choose from in here. So I put the number 6 Gowell's Delight on top, 6-2-1-4 for me, 1-2-3-6 for Mike in the Silver Bullet Day, race 9 at Fairgrounds on Saturday. Good luck after playing the races this weekend.